Hi, everybody. Welcome back to another NovaFlex webinar. Come on in, grab a seat. It's nice and warm in here. It's kind of cold outside. Well, at least in the Northern Hemisphere. Really glad to see you. Please say hello in the comments. We'll get through the housekeeping really quick. Use the comments to chat with each other and chat with us. Say hello to each other. Let us know where you're tuning in from. And there's a Q&A panel. Use the Q&A panel to ask me questions. Otherwise, we have Martin Grohl from NovaFlex here with us. Also, he can shuffle things around and put questions from the chat into the Q&A. If you missed that, that's no big deal. Anyway, where are you coming from? We're really excited that you're here. Come in, get settled down. Today, we're talking about one of my favorite topics. Panoramas might be first, but meteor showers is kind of second. So I'm really excited about this, and there's a great opportunity. And I'm just going to talk for a couple more seconds. So we let some people come in, and then we're going to get right to it. So let's take a quick look at what's going on. Let's see. We've got some great people here. I got to move it to the other window so I can read better. All right. Drinking tea in New York City with Mark. Martin from Memmingen. Cindy, hello from Harrisburg. Angie. Hi, Angie. You're at RIT. Cool. Nice to see you. Brad, good to see you, Brad. And Ernesto. Excellent. All right. Well, here we go. I'm gonna just get right into it because this is a meaty topic. There's a lot of information to cover. So we're going to start by talking about how to plan and photograph specifically the Geminids meteor shower. So if you're just joining us, say hello in the chat and ask questions anytime. I will break at certain times to take questions, probably at the end because I got a lot of ground to cover. But also, Martin will jump in and let me know if there's a question that I should answer immediately. I trust him to do that. And if you have any gear questions, Martin will answer them during this. But thank you for hosting us, NovaFlex. I am Matt Hill from National Parks at Night. And today we're going to talk about the huge opportunity that's the 2025 Geminids. I call it a present. This meteor shower is going to be amazing. How to plan to photograph it, and actually any other meteor shower, but we're going to be really specific about this one. But you can transfer this information to other meteor showers. If you want to create a radiant composite, how to do that. And then how to plan and capture other types of meteor shower images in any direction. It doesn't have to be a radiant composite. And if you don't know what that is, don't worry about it. We'll get to it. So let's talk about that. I'm going to show you some pictures first so you know what we're talking about. First, this is one of the earliest meteor shower that I shot. It was Great Sand Dunes in 2017. I got 17 images with meteors, and it was between 9:30 and 12:30. And you could see all of the meteors come from one place. That's the radiant. This is Badlands in 2021. This is also the Perseids. It was a peak night. 40 images out of 536 had meteors. So what you're starting to see here is it's a numbers game, right? In 2021, one day after the peak, we photographed the Perseids again, and there were fewer meteors. Only 9 images had it. 2 days after the Perseids peak, and we're going to spend more time with these images at the end of the presentation, but I just wanted to get you a feel. This was an outbreak. There's a really good story behind it, but we had a lot of meteors between 11 p.m. and 4 a.m. So 63 of my images out of almost 500 had meteors in them. And this is the same scene, only facing south instead of north. So same time, and I had 48 images, and you'll notice that they're in a different direction. And we'll talk about that too. They're not coming from a central point, not a radiant, because the radiant is not in the scene. Cool. All right. Jen McVeigh, if you're having audio issues, I'd say restart your browser or check the settings up there. Martin can help you with that. All right. So if good. Next we have Great Sand Dunes from 2023. This was another Perseids peak. You'll see that I got 32 images out of 554. There's no guarantees. This is a Geminids image. Now it was really cold, and you might notice that the sky is a little bit brighter. It's probably because of light pollution to the north from Albany. Uh, but this was 27 images out of 852 images, and that was from 1 a.m. to 6 a.m. And it was really cold, and that's one of the problems with the Geminids. It's in the middle of December, whereas the Perseids are in the middle of August. This was 2024. This is the peak of the Perseids out at Great Basin National Park, but facing north towards the Mount Moriah Wilderness. This was from midnight till about 4 a.m. Got 52 images out of almost 850, plus a little bit of aurora. That's the red and cool colors you see there. And then facing south, you'll notice those straight-ish meteors. That is coming from Perseus, but I got 58 images there. So I just wanted to show you what some meteor shower images can look like. You might see different types from other people, but these are the kinds that I shoot. Let's go through for an overview here. So each meteor shower has an origin, and that means that they look like they're coming from someplace, and it's often named for a constellation. But actually it's just that part of the sky, and the Earth is passing through a debris field as it's tilted on an axis and spinning and rotating around the sun. If you can wrap your head around that, you'll notice that okay, yeah, it sort of comes from the same place in the sky throughout the night because that debris field is coming around. And I have a nice graphic to show you later. Normally it's left by a comet. The Geminids is actually left by an asteroid, which they think is a part of a comet that split apart, and that's called 3200 Phaethon. The Perseids, which I photograph a lot, is from a comet called 190P Swift-Tuttle. It usually starts from the constellation Perseus, and the Geminids are named for Gemini, which is where it's coming from, right? So Perseus is the Perseids. Gemini is the Geminids. You're seeing the pattern here. If you didn't connect the dots before, now you did. So that's where the names come from. All the meteors from that meteor shower will appear to come from that location. So if you trace them, they will point back to that constellation and where it was in that moment at that night. It can appear anywhere, though. It can be at the far horizon on the other side of the hemisphere of the sky, right? And the origin moves through the sky during the night, and it rotates around Polaris, which we'll talk about in depth. But that helps you understand where the meteors are going to be pointing towards or where they could possibly be coming from. Here's just a list of the most active meteor showers. And you'll notice, look in the third column. This says meteors per hour. A lot of these are very low counts, like 5 to 25 for the quadrantids, which is kind of a nice meteor shower, right? And then if you go all the way down to August to the Perseids, it's usually like 10 to 50 meteors per hour. And then go down to December where the Geminids are, and you'll see it says 20 to 75. That's a much bigger number than most of these other ones, right? Well, that's why a lot of people like to photograph both the Geminids and the Perseids, because you're more likely to capture meteors during that time versus very low meteor counts with the other ones, or predicted meteor counts, right? Now, here's a really cool graphic that I took a screenshot from meteorshowers.org, and you can click and drag around on this graphic to show where all the planets rotate around the sun and where that debris field from either the asteroid or the comet is and where it intersects. And I'm going to zoom in here. The blue line is Earth, and that other cloudy line is the debris field from the asteroid. So that's what we're doing, is our planet is passing through a whole bunch of space junk. And that space junk burns up in our atmosphere, and that creates meteors. Now that we covered the science, we're going to talk about some other stuff. And the rest of this presentation is set up like this. We're going to talk about planning, scouting, setting up, and shooting. We're going to spend a lot of time on planning and then a little bit on scouting, and then we'll speed up through the rest of it. By then, the rest of it is pretty academic, but the planning part is probably why you're here. So let's get into it. First, we need to know where it's going to appear in the sky, right? How high is it going to be? How much is this constellation going to travel? And how active are the meteors? And what are this year's showers or conditions, right? Is there a moon? If there is a moon, how bright is it? And if there is that, like, well, when the absence of the moon is there, when you're going to see the most meteors. So how many hours of darkness will there be? These are really important questions during your planning stage to know whether you're going to have chances of success for photographing meteors. I use 3 apps primarily when I'm planning how to photograph meteors or where to photograph them. The first primary tool for me is PhotoPills. PhotoPills has a pill, which is what they call their different parts of the app, that helps you specifically with meteor showers, and we'll dip into that. If you don't own it already, most photographers do, it's $10. And that's $10 once, not a subscription. Then Stellarium Plus is the astronomy app that I use. There's lots of them. It's just the one that I prefer. It has a desktop version, which is really wonderful, that complements the iOS or Android version also. And by the way, PhotoPills is iOS and Android. And then there's another one that came up pretty recently called MeteorActive. It is iOS and Android. And it's a pretty awesome way to look at just meteor showers. And I'll dip into that and show you that a little bit too. But if we're taking a look at PhotoPills, this is the iPad view of it. So you can see all the pills at once. There's a pill there called meteor showers. And if you tap on it, you can go in and say, all right, well, here's a list of all the meteor showers that are available kind of right now and upcoming. And if you scroll down, because of where we are now, if you scroll down on that bottom part and then tap where it says Geminids, it's going to load that meteor shower up top. And you'll see that information up top show you a lot of good things about it. We're going to talk about that information in a second. But there's kind of a weird thing about how the phone is set up. In the middle is all the other meteor showers, and you have to scroll down to the bottom to see some more information, which we're going to show you that next. Up at the top, the first thing you want to do at the top is click on Settings and set your location. Either where you're at, which is auto detect, or you want to type in and choose a location. In this case, I typed in the words Monument and Valley and hit enter because I'm going to be there next week with a group of photographers and we're doing a workshop. So below that, you're going to see that because we've chosen the Geminids, it's going to take you straight to the peak time. And I'm going to draw on this and I'm going to use white now. So right here is the time, and that time is 1:42 a.m. because that's the peak of the meteor shower. And it's on December 14th at 1:42 a.m. because that's the peak of the meteor shower. And that was on purpose. It wants to take you to the best possible time to shoot the meteors. It's going to happen all the time, right? But it's going to tell you also that at that time, which is 1:42 a.m., that's really silly drawing there, it's 150 meteors per hour. Remember that chart that I showed you where it showed you that some good meteor showers get 10 to 25 meteors per hour? This meteor shower has at peak 150 meteors per hour, and that could be affected by where you are on the globe. But it's an extraordinary opportunity. And if you weren't thinking of photographing it, you should at least go outside and look at it. It tells you here that the peak is 1:45 a.m. and that's where we're set is 1:42, 1:45, right? And it's also telling you that the moon setting right here, the moon is a waning crescent and it's 26.8 degrees percent brightness. And it also tells you that there's 8 hours and 2 minutes without a moon, which gives you a lot of time to acquire meteor images, a lot. Some meteor showers have only 2 hours or 4 hours without a moon. And when this one rises, it's only 26.8%. It's a tiny, tiny moon. So it's just going to kiss the landscape and not brighten the sky too much. So we'll talk about that also looking at the graph. Now, this other stuff that you see down here, these are other meteor showers, right? You can ignore those. You don't tap on them, right? But down here, it's going to tell you some important things also. It's going to tell you when the sun rises and the sun sets. And the sun sets at 4:53 for the location that I have set. And that location is in Monument Valley. Yours might look different as you're looking at it, especially if you chose a different location. It's also telling me that the moon is going to set at 1:27 p.m. And on this day, it rises at 2:30 a.m. Well, that's good. The important thing about that is the 2:30 a.m. And we're going to come back to that. But that's when the sky is going to get brighter and you're going to see fewer meteors. So that's kind of, in some cases with a brighter moon, that's when the meteor shower is over, or at least photographing it. But in this case, because it's so dim, it's only 28%, we're going to ignore that and keep shooting. It's also telling us that the Milky Way galactic core, the GC, is always invisible. And that's because we're after Milky Way core season. The Milky Way is always the whole Milky Way is always visible, or most of it. It's just that galactic center part that everybody loves goes away for the winter in our hemisphere, in northern hemisphere. So this is good stuff. Next up, if we scroll down to the bottom, you're going to see this really awesome graph right here. And this graph has some really important things on it. First off is you have a gray line that's going up and then coming back down. That gray line is the meteor shower. And you'll see a little icon here, and that's a meteor shower icon. We'll come back to that. And then you have another blue line right here, and that's the moon. The moon rises and sets, right? And then you have this gray line in the center that says 0 degrees. That's the horizon. And above that, you see 90 degrees and 30 degrees, right? So those numbers are like how high in the sky is the meteor shower. So the meteor shower starts at the horizon and then it rises up to almost the zenith, right above the crown of your head. And we'll come back to that, but that's kind of really important information. And also, the moon right here is below the horizon at the peak. That always happens. And that's how it works. But there's a little shelf right here that is covered by my pink arrow there. But as soon as the moon comes up, the visibility drops because the sky gets brighter. So the dimmest meteors can no longer be seen. So this graph, this whole gray area that you see here, is extraordinary. This means it's going to be a really great meteor shower because this is the quantity of meteors that you can see. And up here at the peak, it's going to be 150. And that's extraordinary. So down here, this is our meteor shower. This is the Geminids. But why is there other stuff in view? Well, these are also visible. All of these other meteor showers are also visible and in the sky at the same time. Now, I covered up some of them, but you'll see that their significance is low. They have 1.5, 0.6, 0.3, and 0.1 meteors per hour, each of them. So you might get some meteors that don't come from Gemini during your captures. And if you're wondering where they come from, it might be these other meteor showers. The other line that we have here is the moon up top. And it just tells you right here that it's below the horizon because it's -9 degrees. So that's good. So that's how that information works. You've got this great graph that gives you a visual display of the entire meteor shower from the time it ramps up, which is basically at sunset, twilight, to the time the sun rises, which is over there on the other arm of it, the right arm. So this is a very helpful thing, and this will change slightly depending on what location you set, which is why we talked about setting your location first. Now, I threw some numbers at you back here, right? Right here we have azimuth and we have elevation. Let's talk about what those are. The azimuth here is how many degrees from north going clockwise. So if we go back one slide, right here, the azimuth, the Geminids are going to be 135 degrees from clockwise. We'll talk about what that actually is, but if you think a circle is 360 degrees, so 90 is a quarter turn, and 180 is a half turn, right? So if we think about it that way, during the peak, the meteor shower is almost all the way down towards the south, but it's also got this elevation number right here. So elevation is how many degrees from the horizon you're going up. So if this other number here is 81.92 and the zenith right here is 90 degrees, that means that this value that we see here, 81.92 degrees, basically means that the meteor shower is going to be right there. It's going to be almost due south and almost at the top of the dome, straight up above your head. Now, we'll come back to that, but I just wanted to tell you what those numbers are if you weren't familiar with them. The azimuth is how many degrees from north going clockwise, and elevation is how many degrees from the true horizon up. All right. So next, now that we talked about those, at peak, the Geminids in my location that I plan on being, the Monument Valley, the azimuth is going to be 135 and the elevation is 81.92. So those are important numbers when you're planning. Why do we care right now? Well, we kind of dipped into this already, but with this having 130 to 150 meters per hour, this is a truly significant meteor shower. The biggest meteor shower I ever saw was that outburst 2 or 3 days after the peak in the Badlands a couple of years ago. And that was only just north of 100 meteors per hour. This is predicted to be 150, which is why I'm so excited about it. I want everybody to go outside and either look at it or photograph it or both. So check on this. Your peak time differs with kind of where you are. It's also where you're going through with the debris belt and all of that. And what time it is. After midnight, it's always more meteors because the Earth is spinning around. Instead of passing through meteors going by you, you're now turning into the debris field. So you're going to see more meteors. That's just science, and science is cool. Well, the peak times that I checked during using PhotoPills at Monument Valley, I want to talk about the azimuth and elevation so that we can talk about planning here. I broke it down every 2 hours. See this? Starting at 7:45, which is kind of twilight-ish. And then we have 9:45. Ooh, look at that. 9:45, 11:45, 1:45, and 3:45. The peak is 1:45, right? So we have roughly, we go from 40 meteors per hour, which is nothing to sneeze at. That's still a significant meteor shower. It goes up to 150 meter per hour, and then it starts to dip back down again after that. And it starts at 60 degrees from north, right? And then it comes around after that, and it goes around to 260 degrees. But we will talk about what that means with some other ways to look at it. And the elevation goes from 16 degrees near the horizon. It starts at the horizon, right? And it goes all the way up to 82.48 degrees. And then it starts to come back down, and then the sun rises. So it's going to be starting low and going very high and then coming back down. And it's sort of, it's going to be like a marathon. The longer you stay out, the more meteors you're going to capture. But the origin moves so far and so fast that creating a radiant is going to be challenging. And we'll keep talking about that. So, oh gosh, it didn't come out so good here. I had a nice slide with all of the numbers here. I guess it has transparency. So these are the same things: 7:45, 9:45, 11:45, and 3:45. And you know what? I can I'm going to open up Keynote and show you that slide because it's just important to see it. So let me get to that slide really quick. Slide 28 here. And I'm going to play in window. Now we're going to share my screen. Share screen. Come on. Switch screen. Give me a second. Window. Meteor showers. Share. Cool. Now you should be able to see it. So now you could see that the hour versus the elevation is there. At 7:45, it's low. It's 16.44 degrees off the horizon, but it's 39.2 meters per hour. And then the higher it gets, it's 2 hours later, it's almost 40 degrees off the horizon. It's almost 90 meters. And then at 11:45, it's 61 degrees off the horizon, and it's getting higher in the sky, and you're at 132 meters per hour. And then 2 more hours later at 1:45 a.m., it's almost 150 meters per hour, but it's almost straight above your head near the zenith. And then as it starts to come back down, you'll see fewer meteors. But I say fewer tongue-in-cheek because it's still 93 meters per hour. So that was a good show. And then we'll switch back to my slides here and come back to this. I wanted to show you another way of thinking about it. This is your azimuth. With how far from north. I pulled out the compass app, and you can do the same thing here. It's going to start, and you can see north. And I'm going to turn my drawing back on here. North is this way, right? And then 2 hours later, the meteor shower is all the way over here from north. And then 2 hours after that, the meteor shower is all the way over here from north. And then 2 hours after that, the meteor shower is all the way over here. And it keeps moving. And then we come back over here, and like this is north over here, right? And then it's all the way over here. But think about it again, it's going to be going up, 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 up almost the whole time and then dip back down. So it's really, and we'll show you this in PhotoPills what this looks like. It's really going to come up from the horizon and then sort of make a curlicue like that, which is a lot of fun. If you swipe, I wanted to show you something else here. This graph is also interactive in PhotoPills. If you swipe left and right, it's going to change the time value. So you see the time value change up here as you swipe left and right. And you'll see the graph change. And you'll see all the things that we talked about on the center line here. So if you wanted to see where things are going to be and all these other numbers, you can do that. You can also, and we're going to demonstrate this, use the augmented reality, the AR button here. We'll click on that and show you what that looks like. I just want to take a second to compare this to, so you know the magnitude. If you weren't convinced already, I'm going to convince you now. The 2024 Perseids were fantastic. And that's what we have on the right here. And look at just the graph. If you look at only the graph, you see how the large gray area is there and how much more volume this one occupies. That's how many more meteors there's potentially going to be. Now just pray for clear skies. I think I might have convinced you. There's an earlier peak versus the Perseids for the Geminids this time. There's more meteors per hour. There's more time without the moon. There is no Milky Way core, which some might say is a disadvantage, but I say it's less distracting. But it also has a higher max elevation. It's going to be much higher in the sky. I don't want to beat that horse to death. So taking a closer look again here, you can see that we have, let's talk about days before and after. So this is December 12th, 13th, 14th, which is the peak, and then the 15th. And I just want you to stare specifically at the gray areas. You see in here how much more volume there is as I go through here. With some other meteor showers, you have the opportunity to practice the night before But this night is going to have not so many meteors. Let's see, how many meters per hour do we have? 16 meters per hour versus 150. With the Perseids, it's a little bit of a slower ramp up. So this one, you really got one shot at the massive meteor shower. And the night before and the night after, we'll have some meteors, but not nearly the same significance as the night of, which is the 13th into the 14th. Be clear about that. Don't go out the 14th into the 15th and expect to see as many meteors as this shows you. This is a Perseids progression. So I'll just show you, like, we have a slow ramp up. So you can practice the days preceding with the Perseids. And then you have a peak day where it goes up like that. And there's still more meteors going after that. So there's a qualitative difference between the Geminids and the Perseids like that. It's kind of like, the World Series. It only happens on one night. So the qualities of the Geminids are this. There's really only one peak night. The other nights have much lower meters per hour. I just said that, but I wanted to put it in words here. Keep in mind that there's predicted meteor hours rate by change by location. In Catskill, it says 150. Sometimes I get 150 down in Arizona, where we'll be with Monument Valley. Sometimes I got 140, 150. And then I know I've said this a lot, but the origin moves quite a bit during the night, especially when compared to the Perseids, because it's further away from Polaris, and that's why it moves a lot. Here's a look at using Stellarium. I just wanted to show you, like, if you, the observer, are laying on your back and north was at your feet and south was at your head and east were on your right hand and west were on your left hand, it would be like this. And you had fisheye for eyes, right? The Geminids would rise right here, right after sunset, during twilight. And they would move up in this direction, right? And then at 2:42 a.m., which is kind of near the peak, it's a little bit after the peak, they're right here. If this is the zenith right here, they're going to be a little bit south. Sorry for the clumsy drawing there. They're going to be a little bit south of the zenith, right? If the zenith is right here. And then coming back around this way later on in the night. And then they're going to end up right before morning twilight over there. So you'll see the progression is basically that it's going to start here and go like that. And that's what I was talking about with that curly Q, is you're going to see it come up and around and go like that throughout the night. So following that is going to be kind of hard, unless you have a fisheye, right? And we'll talk about that too. The night AR, I'm going to demonstrate live using my phone to show you this, but this is how it looks like in PhotoPills, and PhotoPills shows you all of the other meteor showers that are also happening as you look around. And in this case, the Perseids was the main one that I showed for the screenshot, but you can see another meteor shower was in view at the same time during the same night. This is in Great Basin, the peak with the night AR. You can see the Perseids also has another visitor. There's never only just one meteor shower happening at the same time. There's some debris. I hate to say never, but most of the time there's more than one meteor shower, and one of them is dominant usually. All right, let's hop over to PhotoPills real quick. I'm going to switch screens, switch to a window, and get to my phone, share, and come on. There we go. So this is PhotoPills, and if you scroll down in PhotoPills, you'll see the meteor showers is there. We saw screenshots of this, but I wanted to show you it live. So currently it says there's nothing going on. If I hit settings and I go into position, most people have auto update set, and that's a good way to be. But if you want to scout something else, you're going to turn off auto update and you're going to type in the place you want to be, and hopefully it's in the list here. If it's not, you can paste in coordinates. And now as soon as I do that and I click done, it's changed to Rimrock over here, right? Like that. But nothing else is going on. It's still December 4th, which is today. Now, if I go down and click on Geminids, you'll see that the information at the top changes, and I can scroll down to the bottom, and I can drag this to the left and the right and show you all the information that changes like this. Now, a lot of this stuff you can go over on the replay and see again, but you'll see all that information changes there, and you'll see how the meteor shower rises in the dome, its elevation, but you also see that the moon is going to come up over the horizon, and there's that dip over there where you can see, oh good, you can see my cursor. You can see the dip there where it falls off. That's where the moon rises. So you can see fewer meteors per hour as soon as the moon provides light pollution. That's all it is. And down here on the bottom, there's AR. And if we click on AR, it's going to tell me that you can't use the camera, but I can still show you the stuff. So I'm going to turn around and show you where it starts. But first, I'm going to roll back, and I have to do this with two hands. Or to roll back to the beginning. So there, you see this is twilight, the end of twilight. The background changing color is how PhotoPills tells us. This is sunset, twilight 1, 2, 3. So now the Geminids are rising over here. There's north, and there's east. So it's halfway between north and east. And then it's going to come up this way. And you see the time changing. That's 9:30. And then it's going up. And this is really hard to do with two hands, but I'm doing it. It's going to go up like that and up like that. And now we're looking basically overhead, right? And then as soon as it turns, this is really hard to do. There we go. Sorry for the shaky cam here, folks. It's worked better in practice. There we go. And now there's twilight again. So around 5:45 a.m., it's over there. And if we could see, oops, connects. It's going to come back. There we go. We're going to see that I had accidentally touched the screen there. I'm basically pointing my phone straight up. So we're going to go down to the south, and we're going to go straight up and over here, and we're going to look for it. And there it is. It's to the west. So the Geminids start north, northeast, and then to the west. And that whole path right there, you can follow with the night AR. And you can see that that's where it is. And there's the dots along the line that tell you where it's going to be. And this will help you with your planning. If you have something that you want to put in your foreground, this night AR tool that you have on the phone with PhotoPills can help you, if you're a visual learner and planner, on scene to say, oh, it's going to be near here. Now, there's a lot of things that we could talk about there, but I'm going to keep it there for now. And we'll go back to the presentation. Next up, I'm going to show you Stellarium really quick because it's helpful. That's where I took those screenshots from before, and I'm going to pop into the screen there. All right. So it says not at a real location because cancel, because I loaded that. So what you can do is go into the search and type Geminids, and you see that it has a meteor shower thing after there. So if I click on Geminids here, we've got that. And then down in the right-hand corner, I want to go to the peak. So we're going to go to 12:14 because we know it's 12:14 and we want it to be a certain amount of time. But look, we can follow it too, right? If I put away the time and I go over here, I can turn this and follow it in the sky. Cancel. There we go. And if I turn this, I can follow where it's going in the sky. And I'm going to zoom out using my scroll wheel on the phone here. But this is how I got this, and I can show you that it starts here and it comes around that way. And you can see all of that happen. And if you make your, if you zoom in a little bit, you're going to start to see just how much it moves like that. So if you face north and you have a wide enough lens that covers almost east to west, which kind of means fisheye, right? Then you could potentially keep the center, the origin in view the whole time. But that's a super wide lens. It's possible, but you need to have something wide enough to get this also. But you'll also notice that Jupiter is going to be really close to it. So that's going to be an easy way to try and find the origin all night when you're editing. And we're going to talk about editing briefly. But Jupiter is going to be a ride along the whole night, which is going to be fun to see that because Jupiter is really easy to find. Ernesto asked how to activate it. Go to the search bar, Ernesto, and type in Geminids and then click on Geminids, and it will now follow it for you. Okay, so that is Stellarium, and you can use this while you're on scene if you're lost and it doesn't and PhotoPills is not helping you. You can, in the night AR, then you can just open this up and it will help you some more. Next up is MeteorActive. Let's get MeteorActive going here. And MeteorActive is right here. In MeteorActive, which they have a free and a paid version. I pay for it because I use it a lot. You're going to see in upcoming nights, you scroll down, it's going to show you what's happening and how many meteors are there, which is pretty awesome. You see, it's even telling you that on December 12th to 13th, you're going to get 24 meters per hour, which is cool. All right. But if we go up to the top and just click on Geminids, you've got this really nice view. Oh, excuse me. I forgot to switch to showing this. So let me go back. Here's the calendar. At the top, you've got your Geminids here, and then it shows you the upcoming nights. And there's a full moon, right? But then we get down to December, let's see, 12th and 13th, you've got the Geminids, 23. If I click on it, this is the night before, right? Up top, it says the previous new moon was November 20th. And then you have now in the December 14th Geminids. And you can also click on this one and move it around. But if we go back up to the top here and just click on the major meteor shower, we click on that. Now we can move the time scale, which is not working. It works on a phone if you click and drag on this. But I moved this scale here because there's so many meters per hour, you couldn't see the top of it. But it's showing you where you are in the location that you're at. If you click on settings, you can go back in here and choose your location, right? Automatic or where you were. So this is going to be fun. It also tells you the kind of light pollution you have for the setting that you have. And back in the chart here, you can scroll down and see the other fun stuff, which if I could click and drag with your hand, you can see the same sort of star chart here where the Geminids are exactly pretty much right at the zenith here. And that's right at peak, which is a fun challenge. Now, why am I showing you all these things? Because I want you to be informed. These are great tools to help you plan. Here's some more screenshots of that for the video so that you can see the screens. For those of you watching this on replay, enjoy that. And now we're just going to take a breath, and I'm going to see if there's any important questions to do this. Okay. Yes. All right. So right now, those don't look like it. I'm going to keep going because we've got a couple of more chapters to go through. The planning part, I told you we're going to spend a lot of extra time on. I wanted you to understand what it is, right? This is all at home planning. Scouting is when you get to location, right? It's really important to know a bunch of things. One is, are you safe, right? That's always at the top of the list for me, even though I put it in the middle here. Make sure you can walk around at night and not be in any danger, right? You should scout during the daytime on location. You should make sure you know what the terrain is. Is it slippery? Is it firm? Is it rocky? Is it soft? So you can bring the right safety gear. Know where the nearest restroom is, right? Know how to walk to and from your car. If you need GPS to do that, do that. Are you camping? Are you staying in a hotel? Are you just going to rough it all night? And most of all, make sure you choose a pretty foreground, right? You can shoot just the sky if you wanted to, but I lean more towards, and I'm not trying to be instructive here, getting a really nice foreground of where you shot the meteors also, so you can combine them together. I used the night AR. This was during the snowstorm earlier this week, just to show you. This is the night AR telling me where the meteor shower would be. And you can do this on location too. You can step up to the thing that you want to photograph and see just how high the meteor shower is going to be above it. Now I'm beating this horse about how high the meteor shower is going to be. You may or may not care at the end of this, but at least you're informed. I'm going to give you some great tips for choosing a composition in a little bit. But these tell you basically which direction the meteors are going to be coming in. If that matters to you, it's important information. If it doesn't, and you just want to have fun, hang on. I've got some simple tips at the end of this. If you're going to set up, you got to have a couple of qualities that'll help you be successful. One is be deliberate. The second is be patient. This is a marathon. It's not a sprint. Choose your composition or compositions early. Commit to it. Don't move your tripod. That is if you're going to do, how do I say? If you're going to do some sort of radiant, that's fine. But it's really best if you want to line up all of your meteors in one direction that you don't move your tripod. So it's pretty much pretending like you're making a time lapse. Lock your camera down, lock your head down, and shoot. Take pictures over and over again. We'll talk about the settings next. Bring water and snacks, a comfy chair, or go sleep in your car someplace warm. But don't move your tripod. You'll be happy. Here's a group of us at Badlands National Park. All of us set up facing north because that's where the radiant was going to be, just to the right of north. And we left our tripods there until the wee hours. So what are you going to bring? Well, if you have 2 cameras, bring them. If not, bring 1. Bring enough tripods to match your cameras. Bring a lot of full batteries because it's cold out there and batteries go faster. If your camera allows it and you own it, plug in a power bank. It'll let it run faster. If it doesn't allow it, get one of those dummy batteries and plug your power bank into that. An intervalometer is a great idea, even though it has a separate set of batteries and those can fail. Just put fresh batteries in. If you know how to use the camera's internal intervalometer software, feel free to use that if you're confident in it. I like being able to look at an intervalometer that's external to the camera and to confirm that it's still running and listen for the shutter too. A wide fast lenses are pretty great for this, like 12, 14, 15. I've taken some pictures at 24 millimeters that I absolutely love. So I'm not going to be dictatorial about what focal length you should use, and we'll talk about the effects of focal length in a second. If you wanted to use a gem or a German equatorial star tracking mount, that's also a way to avoid a lot of post-processing, and we'll talk about that briefly. When you are planning what direction to face in, if you want a radiant, you got to keep Polaris in view, because later on you're going to use Polaris to rotate all of your images to make the meteors point towards their origin, which would be Gemini in this case. If you don't include Polaris in your frame, it's going to be very hard to make an accurate radiant image where all of the meteors point towards Gemini. If you're facing south or east or west, it really doesn't matter, you're just going to have meteors dropping in basically from the dome. And the later in the night, let's say from 10 p.m. to like 2 a.m., the more the meteors are just going to be coming from the dome and coming straight down in every direction. So you can get an image like this most of the night, and you don't have to worry about having Gemini in view. because it's going to be really hard to have a beautiful foreground and have the zenith in view at the same time. So I would recommend going for a beautiful image where all the meteors are a little bit bigger. That's great. I have a hypothesis about some sort of pano method, but I'm going to skip that now. So repeating, if you want to have a radiant composition, you need to have Polaris and Gemini in view for the duration of your sequence. If that means the entire night, that means you have to have from northeast all the way up to the zenith and back over to past southwest in that view for the radiant and Polaris there the whole time. For me, that basically means a circular fisheye. So otherwise, just point your camera in any direction and have fun. Trying to build a radiant out of this is going to be hard. Or you could plan to do your radiant early on when it's lower to the horizon and then recompose and shoot in another direction with that camera. That is probably going to be a successful method, and I would recommend that rather than trying to track Gemini all the way up near the zenith. If this is all too complicated, don't worry. You can artfully arrange all of these meteors based on a rough idea of where Perseus or, in this case, Gemini were. Why does it say Perseus? I edited all this and it didn't change. So Gemini is close to Jupiter during the shower. So if you align your meteors roughly parallel to the Milky Way or pointing towards Jupiter, you're going to get a pretty good radiant facsimile, right? The most important thing is just to capture a bunch of images, and we'll talk about those settings next. Keep your camera open, keep it running. You can only capture meteors if your camera is open and running. And if you're going to be facing towards Gemini, the meteors are going to be shorter. The further away from Gemini you're pointing, the longer the meteors are going to be. So if you like long, burny comet meteors, just point your camera as far away from Gemini as you can, and you'll get really pretty, beautiful meteors. The Geminids meteors, at least for me, they're less colorful than the Perseids meteors, meaning like the Perseids go like green into yellow red. The Geminids sort of start blue for me, and that's my limited experience with it. This is not science. I'd like to hear from you what you got. I'd like to see your pictures and hear about it too. I love these stories. So, but basically, you're going to set up your camera and let them run and watch the meteor shower. Now that we've talked about all this technical mumbo jumbo, this is a great example of what it looks like to just see facing away from the radiant. You got nice, long, burny, bright meteors. And then there's that one erratic meteor coming across the Milky Way there. That was a bolide that came from another meteor shower. It wasn't from the Perseids. All right, lens selection. Here we go. Wider. You're going to have more meteors, but they're going to be smaller. It's true. If you use a narrower lens, you're going to have fewer meteors, but they're going to be larger and more colorful. So it's really a difference between like a 14 and a 24. You could shoot a 35 or a 50, but you're really narrowing down your possibilities of catching meteors. But when you do, they will be extraordinary because they will be big and sharp and bright and colorful. Your camera settings, very important. I would recommend taking two types of photographs. One is for the landscape. Take one photograph that's a lower ISO with a longer exposure that is well exposed and focused on everything in the landscape all the way to the horizon. That would be one picture. And then you change all of your settings for star point pictures after that. You're going to use a high ISO. It could be 3200 or 6400 or 12,800. And you're going to use the star points with your NPF shutter speed. Your NPF shutter speed is something that you find in PhotoPills under point stars, and I can show you that. I'm just seeing if I have it in here. Let's do this again. Let's pop over to my phone, and I'll show you really quickly what NPF is. All right, so we're going to jump out of MeteorActive and jump into PhotoPills. We'll go back to the main screen and go to Spot Stars. In Spot Stars, you're going to choose your camera model. In this case, I have a Nikon Z8, and I'm going to choose my 15 millimeter lens. You can put in whatever focal length you have and use the aperture that you're using. In this case, it's 2.8. Now, it says NPF rule, my longest shutter duration is 14.45 seconds. So choose the next shutter speed down from that on your camera. This is default though. If you click on the word default and you choose accurate, this is if you're going to like make a gallery print. You shouldn't go over 7.22 seconds. So you go to 6 seconds instead. I usually split the difference between default and accurate. So in this case, I'm just going to call it 10 seconds. I usually shoot with maybe I'll do 12 seconds. With a 24 millimeter, you'll see that it's radically different. You have a shorter shutter speed. It's 9.11 seconds. So I use 8 seconds for my 24 millimeter lens. And I use 12 or 14 seconds for my 15 millimeter lens. So make sure you know what your MPF rule is by using PhotoPills. And that's going to help you set your shutter speed. Your ISO should be set appropriately so that you have enough information in the stars that they're bright enough, but that you don't blow out the meteors when they happen. I usually shoot at 6400 and 2.8 and whatever my NPF shutter speed is. But you should test if you have a lot of light pollution near you, you might be using 3200 or something lower. So take a test, look at it, inspect it at 100% and check it. Your landscape image is going to be a longer exposure. You're going to stop down for more depth of field. You could use the hyperfocal technique. We don't have enough time to go into that today. You might turn on long exposure noise reduction, or LENR for short. The light disappears pretty quickly during twilight. You might shoot your landscape during twilight. You might shoot it during starlight. You might shoot it during moonrise. Who knows? It's really up to you. Or you might shoot all of those and choose which one you like the best. But having a good quality landscape image is also fantastic. You can use light painting also, and we'll show you a slide with that later. And here's a sky meteor image. You can see the difference between the landscape image with the color and clarity, and then the starlight image is very different. There's not a lot of information in the foreground. That's why we shoot a different landscape. So that landscape is 240 seconds at ISO 1250 and 5.6. My sky image was 15 seconds at 6400 and 2.8. And in this case, I shot 21 of those images and I star point stacked them. These days, I don't need to. I just use one image and I use the AI denoise in Lightroom. And then you focus on infinity and make sure those stars are sharp, sharp, sharp. And then from here, you're really going to take this same picture over and over and over hundreds of times. So you're going to set your camera to whatever setting you arrive at. In this case, it was 6400, 2.8, and 15 seconds. And I'm going to set a 1 second interval in between those and set my intervalometer to infinity, which is the double dash, and then say go. And every once in a while, I'm going to come back to make sure that A, my memory card is not full, and B, that I have enough battery left. Really quickly, let's talk about star trackers. Should you use one? Yes, you can. If you use a GEM, a German equatorial mount, it's going to counter-rotate against the rotation of the Earth, and you can keep Gemini in view, and you're going to not have to rotate any of your images later to make a radiant image. It's pretty awesome. But if you do that, you're not going to have the same landscape, but that's fine. You shot your landscape image separately. It's pretty great. The Benro Polaris is a unique tracker. That one has an XYZ tracker, and it doesn't quite rotate the same way. So you would probably still have to rotate some things, but you could have longer exposures. The benefit of a tracker is that you can drop your ISO and take longer pictures, longer exposure times, which means that you have more dynamic range. Your stars won't trail, and there's a chance that you could capture more color in your meteors, which is attractive. They're just a pain in the ass to use. So if you're used to using a star tracker, go for it. If this is the first time you've used one, don't do it. Just use a static tripod. You definitely, hey, hi, this is a NovaFlex presentation. You should definitely use a rock solid tripod. I use NovaFlex tripods and I love them. I am going to take for this trip, I'm going to take my Trio Balance, which is my daily driver, and put a classic ball on it because I really don't need to do anything fancy schmancy. I'll also bring my VR System Slim panel bracket because I've got some other fun stuff that I want to do. I'm also going to bring my TrioPod M and the cup squared geared head for precision. And that's going to be my setup. I'm going to pull off the rubber caps. I'm going to dig the spike feet in. I'm going to make sure the tripods don't move so I don't have any registration issues. Make sure you bring a reliable tripod and one that you can count on. And thank you, NovaFlex, for being awesome. Let's take a look at some of these pictures again with a little bit more story behind them so you can understand what it took to plan and shoot these. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this, but I want you to have a little more depth to understanding these compositions because none of these were a single picture. These were all the effort of many, many, many hours of photography. So this 2017 image, the meteor shower pill and PhotoPills was not available, so I had to use all the information I could find about what to do. So I did it by the books or by the internet, right? So it was from 9 p.m. to 12:30 a.m. I had a D750. I shot a 15 millimeter, and I only got 17 images out of 325. Each image was 22 seconds long, and we weren't using the MPF rule back then either. So actually, these star points are mini star trails, which today I look at that and I go, yikes. I wouldn't do that today. But I had a single foreground image also. I waited for moonrise, which happened over to the right-hand side because I'm facing north. And that was 382 seconds long at ISO 2000. So a really nice, beautiful foreground of the Great Sand Dunes with the moonrise. On the peak night of the Badlands, this was the classic Badlands foreground, right? There was a lot of light pollution from the entry gate to the Park Service over there. But there was clean, dark skies. Clouds rolled in later. So we shot from 11 p.m. to 4 a.m. This was my Laowa 15 millimeter lens. I only got 40 images with meteors, but there was enough to create this radiant image. And the foreground was 240 seconds at ISO 1250. We talked about this before, right? The sky was only 15 seconds long, star point stacked. One day after that, we were in a different location, and there were many fewer meteors in the sky. And there was also early clouds to the north. So those combined made for a less dramatic image. But there was a lot of air glow. It was really beautiful. So this was 9 images out of 400, which was really disappointing, but you got to be there. You got to be in it to win it, right? I did get 9 images with meteors, and that's great. That's more than if I wasn't out shooting or if I quit early, right? But I did a focus stack in the foreground also to get those cacti in focus, and I light painted them, and it's an okay image. This was one of my favorite images until Great Basin happened. This was where we were out taking pictures of other things, and we noticed that there just happened to be a lot of meteors going on. And then one of the attendees said, "This is an outburst," which means 50 to 100% more meteors than predicted. And that night there was predicted like 20 meteors per hour, and it was like 100. So we all knew what to do. We had already practiced the previous 2 or 3 nights taking pictures of meteors. So we just set up our cameras and shot until twilight. The foreground was pitch black, so I used an LED light on a stand to light up the yellow mounds there in Badlands. So there's the technical details. We got 63 images out of 464 with meteors. That was great. And then the 5 frames where I was light painting were what I combined to create that foreground image. And the green is air glow. That's a naturally occurring phenomenon. This is that same night, but facing to the south. To create the radiant, you have to rotate all of those layers with meteors so that they point towards the origin, in this case, Perseus. This one, the processing was different. I just rotated them to align with the Milky Way, which at the north end, if we go back, the north end of the Milky Way has Perseus right there. You see how it's on the left edge? So I just pointed all the meteors back to the other end of the Milky Way, and they lined up with where they actually came from. So I used science to figure this one out. This one was with an 11 millimeter cine lens, and the foreground was 490 seconds at a lower ISO. And then I had a single sky frame in the background. This is with a fisheye lens. This was one day before the peak at Great Sand Dunes, and I only caught one meteor, but it was a bolide. It was a beautiful, beautiful, sizzling, banging image, but I got everything else in view also. So this was a circular fisheye, and it was 6 images, one in each cardinal direction, one facing straight up, which got the meteor, and then one straight down. This is another version of that where I did get a bunch of meteors, but they're so dim because it's such a wide lens that it was kind of distracting. So 15 of those images have meteors, but if you looked at this, you'd have to hunt really hard to see them. And perhaps I could put a little more effort into post-processing, but the meteors aren't that big. So it's something to think about. If you use a fisheye, you might get all of them, but they might be disappointingly small. Great Sand Dunes also in 2023. This was from 1 a.m. to 6 a.m. 32 images. We came back after a thunderstorm rolled through and took our pictures. We had shot our foreground during twilight, and then we ran to our cars as the storm came. Some of us went to sleep. Some of us slept in our cars and came back out later on for clear skies. So we're lucky to get 32 images out of that, but we couldn't climb the dunes because there was a dangerous thunderstorm. Then 3 days later, I did climb to the top of the dunes and shot these pictures, and that was 5 images out of 875, which I was really tickled that I climbed to the top of the dunes, but 3 days after the peak, there's not a lot of meteors. So I took the sky from a couple nights before, and I put those meteors up on top of it to create this creative exposure, which is this, where I composited the same meteor shower that I shot a mile to the right on top of that from 3 days later. So same place, different days. So it's a fiction. This was the truth of that night, and this is a combination of 2 different nights. And then here's a Geminids shot where I learned that it's really important to get battery-powered socks so you don't get frostbite on your toes, which almost happened to me. So from 1 a.m. to 6 a.m., I shot 852 images, and I only got 27 meteors. I attribute part of that to the light pollution. The other part of it, I'm not really sure, but it wasn't really predicted to be as much as we have this year. It was maybe 40 or 60 an hour, not 150. So one longer foreground exposure. And then Great Basin was really extraordinary in 2024. This is facing south, 58 images out of 1,985 images had these meteors. And also the clouds are lit up from aurora. Aurora is hitting those clouds, and so is the foreground. We got lucky that night that there was a G3 storm. And then this is the facing to the north, and it's so bad. I mean, it's terrible. It's beautiful, but the aurora sort of outshines all the meteors, but they're up there and they're coming out. And it was still awesome. And again, different foreground exposure, 480 seconds at ISO 800 versus all of those NPF rule shots up top. So 852 pictures only got 52 meteor pictures. So again, point your camera in one direction, turn it on, take lots of pictures, 1 second in between, capture all the meteors you can, and then you're going to post-process that later. If you don't have dusk, moon, or sunrise, and it's only dark out, then I would recommend doing what I did here. This is where I did the low-level light painting on the foreground with an LED. So that's what it looks like. And this is a little screenshot from Photoshop where I was assembling the final composition. So here's your checklist as we come in for a landing. Know the dates and times for the meteor shower peak, which in this case is December 13th through 14th. The projected meteor count is huge. Just get out there. How many hours of darkness? Depending on where you're at, roughly 8. Know the weather for your location. And if it's not going to be good, get in your car and drive. Have a backup location, right? And warm up. Definitely warm up. Shoot the night before. Shoot as if you're going to shoot the night of the big show, that you're going to commit to shooting all night. Know what it feels like and go out and shoot it and process some of those images and see what it was like, and make your mistakes the night before, not the night of. Like, make sure you check your focus and that it's perfect, right? And then if you can, pack gear for 1 or 2 setups and decide whether you're going to go with a tracker or not. Some common questions. Do I have to face north? No, you don't. You can face in any direction, especially with this particular meteor shower. With any other meteor shower, you can face in any direction also. Why shouldn't you move your camera? Well, because if you do, it's going to be hard to composite all of those meteors together. You could. It is not factually correct. There's ethics involved, but you can decide what your ethics are, right? Should you shoot RAW? Yes, please. Don't shoot JPEGs. That way you'll have the most editing capabilities. What do you do with all these files? Well, you process them. You need to find the meteors first and set those aside. And then you can put those all together in layers in Photoshop and mask in the meteors and mask out everything else. If Polaris was not in your frame, then you can just layer all of those images together, mask the meteors in, and you can align them in a way that you think is appropriate. Good. Next up, how do you process this? Whew, that is a long answer. And we don't have time for that. So what I'm going to do instead is I'm going to do this, slide that out. I'm going to give you guys this opportunity here. We have an ebook called Great Balls of Fire. There's a lot of information in there, including some of this, and a lot of this is new. You'll find at that link, you'll find that you can download, even if you decide not to pay anything for it. And I'm not trying to guilt you into it. Pay what you will. There's a lot of information there, especially some information about editing. That's just out of scope for this. But here's just a look of what the editing kind of looks like. This is a foreground masked with the sky masked out. And this is with the single sky image behind that. And then this is all the meteors that I could find with only the meteors masked in. And you already saw what the final image looks like. But those are really the elements: a foreground, a single good star field image, and all of the meteors that you could find masked in. Whew. All right, it's time for Q&A. I should have brought some water. All righty. I'm going to go take a look. Martin said he moved 5 questions to the Q&A. All right. The first question is from Alan. Is there any benefit to using an astro-modified camera to capture meteors? If the meteors happen to have any spectral response that matches your astro-modified camera, you might see a little bit more. Since some of this is burning, it's all burning. The meteoroid is just burning as it comes into the atmosphere. You might see a little bit longer of a tail in some places. I've tested it both ways, and I didn't see a significant difference or advantage to using an astro-modified versus not. I think both of them capture burning objects in the sky equally well. Right. So that's a good question, Alan. If your second camera is an astro-modified camera, go for it. Do that. That'd be great. Naal said, can I assume north is true north? Yes, you can. Absolutely. In all cases where I was mentioning north, I was talking about true north. Sue asked, with your tripod, do you ever weight the tripod, weigh it down? I don't. What I do instead is I spread the tripod legs a little bit wider to the next click out, so that it's more stable. And I use the spikes if possible. If I think there's a lot of wind and other stuff going on, I will find big rocks and put it on the end of the legs. I don't use the hook in the center because if the wind comes up, then the wind will start blowing everything around, and the bag will start rotating on the bottom of it, and that'll cause not so much sharpness. I don't like that. So yeah, good question, Sue. Marking that as answered. Jeff asked, what results should you expect if you point your camera to the east on the tracker? I'm asking in terms of meteor direction streaks, given the tracker will rotate up overhead and to the west. Well, Jeff, I've not had opportunity to test this yet, but essentially what you're doing is keeping Gemini in view the whole time. So you're going to have, depending on how you frame it, you're going to have the origin in your lens the whole time. So you're going to have a pretty easy to edit meteor sequence. What you're going to see, as we talked about before, is that if the origin is there, the meteors are much shorter in the origin, closer to the origin as they are the further away they get. So you can expect to see both short and long meteors in your frame versus just pointing in one direction without a tracker. I'll be testing both during this meteor shower, and I look forward to hearing what you do too. It's always fun working with you, Jeff. Mark. Oh, what just happened? I think I just made one disappear. Oh, okay. What is the benefit to shooting video with a wide angle, and do you have the settings for this? Oh, that's really interesting. I have not shot video, but I have seen people do this. The settings would be harder because your frame rate is so much shorter. You're going to have to crank your ISO up really high. You're going to have to use some sort of video codec that allows you to use high ISO. So you have to use some sort of flat setting that gives you the maximum dynamic range. You might actually have to shoot some sort of raw video if your camera's capable of that, just to pull the information out of there. I would shoot fast. And in this case, maybe if you have a really fast lens, like a 1.4 or 1.2, that's good to keep your ISO down a little bit. Maybe you'll be up around 6,400 or 12,800 or 52,000. But as soon as you get a really bright meteor, it might blow out. So I would be watching and testing and pulling clips to see if the meteor was too bright, depending on the effect that you want. Some people enjoy that. You're just going to have hours and hours of video. I would prefer and recommend, instead of shooting video, to do what we're suggesting here and to shoot single photographic images and assemble that into a time lapse using a program like LR time lapse in Lightroom. You could use there's lots of ways to do this, but time lapse I think is more efficient than shooting video. All right, Sue asked this. If you use a tracker, can you align it with Gemini instead of Polaris? Oh yeah, absolutely, Sue. Well, you would align your tracker with Polaris. You would track Gemini. I hope that clearly answers the question. If not, ask a follow-up. Mark has answered. Mark asks, that would be a second or third camera in addition to a still camera. Sure. I mean, if you have a video camera that, I think you asked the question about video. If you had a video camera that was extraordinary at low light, such as a Sony A7S series, then you probably would have less trouble. But some cameras with higher resolution have trouble with low light. So that's where it excels. So yeah, if you're going to have a second or third camera in addition to a still camera, I would just take cameras and point them in many directions, or with many different focal lengths and see what you get, focusing on making sure that you have an interesting composition. Because just getting the meteors to me is not satisfying. I like to have something beautiful in the foreground too. So I hope that's helpful. Jeff had a follow-up, and I'm going to mark that one as answered. For the shots you showed using the 24 to 70 millimeter lens, what focal length did you use, and which would you recommend? Closer to 24, mid-range 50? For that Perseids shot, I used 24 millimeters. It seems to be a sweet spot for me for panoramas and for the meteors, because you get enough sky and enough landscape that there's sufficient detail in both. And that happened to have the core of the Milky Way in it also, which we won't have during the Geminids. So that made it also visually interesting. So maybe you'll want to have like a really beautiful tree breaking the horizon line or something like that to help balance out and give you a reason to use something that's, you know, a medium wide. Play with it and see what strikes your fancy. There's nothing wrong with using a 50, except that you're going to need to get your foreground and the stars in focus, which you're going to shoot two separate pictures anyway, but that's challenging given the right depth of field. So that's why 24 is pretty good. Hyperfocal technique with a 24 is easier to achieve than with a 50 or a 35. Sue, you said that you're not exactly sure how one would do that. That is germane to the tracker and how the trackers work. That's kind of out of scope for this presentation. There's a lot of videos about how to use star trackers out there. I'd recommend looking for that. And if not, check back in. I'm not an expert on trackers. I do use them occasionally. There's a lot of people out there that know a lot more about them than I do. So, all right. I think I had another follow-up here, but I'm going to check in the chat. If anybody else has a question, please let me know. Otherwise, I think I've run out of air and water, and I need to drink water and go breathe. I've been talking for a while. I appreciate all of you who attended live. Thank you for that. And if you're watching this on a replay, awesome. Pause, take notes, and I hope that you have a successful time. No matter whether you're watching this live or a replay, I hope you get out there and you photograph the meteor shower and you have a terrific time doing it. Get the pictures, and then you can talk about how to you can figure out how to process them later. I wish I had time to discuss that now. My goal was to make sure that you know where to look and what settings to use and make some good decisions about which direction to point in. Have a terrific day. I wish you all of the success. Check back in and let us know in the comments on the video whether you are successful. This will be posted on YouTube in a day or two. Have a great day. Yeah, keep looking up at the skies. Go seize the night. Have a great night.